Hey, David Atkins, target individual. Okay, I got something on implants, and a lot of old targeted victims have implants, as well as some new targeted victims have them. But for the word implant, I'm going to use I in this when I talk about this. Also, what you got to understand is they don't need them, but if they get a chance to put one in you, I guarantee they will. And I'm going to come with a devotion today from Psalm 56:8. Our sorrow matters to God. You keep track of all my sorrows. You've collected all my tears in your bottle. You've recorded each one in your book. The psalmist David faced nearly constant hardship from betrayal by friends and family to threats against his life. While he was being held captive by an enemy nation, he penned this prayer. You keep track of all my sorrows. You've collected all my tears in your bottle, and you've recorded each one in your book. When we're hurting, we may feel like God is distant or detached, but he's described here in profoundly tender, engaged, and intimate way. God cared enough about David's heart, ached enough to notice and remember each tear, and he cares about our sorrows with the same gentle intensity. Nothing we go through escapes his compassionate attention. Okay, and so I'm going to get started with this. It says, let's look at three victims who suffer from mind control eyes and body control eyes, who are better known by this author. We can refer to him as Amy, victim number 1001, Betty, victim 1002, and Kathy, victim number 1003. Amy determined by using a spectrum aneurysm she had 750 megahertz targeted on her. Betty determined she had the entire spectrum of microwave radio waves hitting her in a Morse code pattern. The transmitter receiver for the signals was a fiber optic receiver made to look like a pubic hair that repeatedly burned holes in her underwear. Apparently, this side effect is a bug. They haven't gotten out of this technology. Kathy has ELF, extremely low frequency, and very low frequency waves of 435 and 1080 megahertz targeted on her. When she's active, both types of waves comes, and she remains when she remains still. The 1080 signal fades. 435 is in the 4 to 450 band, which is in the window to the human conscious, and 1080 is in the 1000 to 1200 megahertz band. And I'm going to try to skip all this big stuff for you. They're also using a nitrogen particle beam, which produces nitrogen narcosis in targeted victims. Xenon lamps can affect the mind and body too. 435 megahertz is converted to 1080 by interaction with the high atmosphere HARP project. The 1000 to 1200 megahertz frequency can affect genetics. Implant RF frequencies, radio frequencies, have been damaging the eyes of implant victims. Okay. Although this gives us a starting point in our discussion, these are not the only frequencies that threaten mind control victims. And it says, a more advanced design utilizes 50 or more distinct channels for various functions. Not only the encrypted primary input signal utilized for signal input, but several channels are reserved for supplemental energy induction, while integrating switching in both passive and active surveillance and brainwave activity may be enhanced. Hold on. Okay. Brain with integrated switching, both passive and active surveillance of brainwave activity may be enhanced. Contrary-wise, signal output may be boosted and focused on specific neural pathways. Devices remain active, programmable signal relays with multiple selectable channels so as long as electromagnetic induction occurs. Modern microchip eyes will have 250,000 components. Certain electrical freaks will trigger certain neurochemicals between the planet that makes the subject feel all in one creation, but it isn't quite that simple because the 7.83 frequency can be seen in numerous different wave shapes, such as rolling, sinusoidal pattern, and I'm going to block that out and see. On the following pages are the startling anechoic chamber results when two victims' central implants were examined. The GWEN towers, The GWEN towers can be used for several purposes, including extremely low frequency waves used for direct mind control, which will be covered towards the back of this chapter, because they're also part of the implant system. They're included before the chapter discusses eyes. Unfortunately for us humans, ELF waves can penetrate almost anything. The U.S. military has built a ground wave emergency network system all over the U.S. with several hundred, 300 to 500 GWEN towers that broadcast a very low frequency wave for mind control in the American public. A single GWEN tower can broadcast up to 300 miles in a 360-degree circle. Plus, 8 secret, powerful, extremely low frequency transmitters have been established, and 3 of them operate on the West Coast. It also needs to be pointed out many items that are receivers can also function in the role of transmitters. Televisions, cellular phones, even air conditioners can be used to bounce signals somewhere. Many strange towers and transmitting devices have been installed all over the U.S. in recent years. And I know this to be fact about the air conditioners because we have a portable air conditioner. And when I used to lay on the floor with the air conditioner because I'd be burning up, the air conditioner was to make me vibrate even 10 times worse than I was already vibrating. But when I got away from it, my vibration lessened. The bodysuits. Victims of mind control who receive eyes are often given a bodysuit of eyes. The location of these eye sites used on the human body have been mapped out on charts. The map sites on these charts are verified by the insider who learned from inside what's going on. The author experience of working with a sizable number of eye victims. Eyes can be placed anywhere, but there are certain key sites that tend to be used. The location also depends on the type of eyes. Eyes over the body create the ability to trigger moods, pain, and other phenomena. Implants for auditory sounds are in the ear. Nasal eyes are also used for mind control. Tracking eyes are also placed into people. And today we're going to be talking about audio eyes. I'm pretty sure this is what this is going to be about. And there's going to be 2 more series after this on different types. Reference page for understanding electromagnetic waves and mind control. The best way for people to understand electromagnetic waves is think of an ocean's waves. Some waves in the oceans are big, some are small. Size is amplitude. Some beaches have waves that come quickly, some have waves that come slowly. This is called frequency that the waves come. The frequency that the waves come. Researchers figured out how they could change the amplitude of the frequency of the electromagnetic waves in a controlled way. And this is called amplitude modulation or frequency modulation because all electromagnetic energy beams travels the same speed, 3 times 10 centimeters per second. An energy beam with a short wave must have many more of those short waves passed in a given time, such as a day is a long wave. The shorter the wave, the greater the frequency that a wave will arrive. While our image of an ocean is that it moves up and down in relation to the surface. In other words, the ocean waves moves or vibrates up and down in relation to the surface, a mathematical plane. Electromagnetic waves vibrate in 3 dimensions relative to 3 planes. Generally, they are only drawn as 1-dimensional waves. Our brains operate on waves that are very low frequency, to about 51 cycles per second to about 50 cycles per second. A cycle per second is called a hertz. Due to the wide range of different amplitudes and frequencies, it's been more practical to induce varying measuring units. It would be nice if all measuring units could be done in feet or meters, but the range from tiny to very large means they use different measuring units. So 1 million cycles per second equals a megahertz. 1,000 cycles per second equal kilohertz. 1 cycle per second equals a hertz. In measuring amplitude, they measure the length of the waves with kilometers, meters, and signals. The very small waves are measured in angstrams, microns, and nanometers. Okay, so I'm going to escape that. Extremely high frequency, 30,000 to 300,000 megahertz. Super high frequency, 3,000. Ultra high, 300 to 3,000 megahertz. Very high frequency, 30 to 300. Medium frequency, 300 to 3,000. Low frequency is 30 to 300 gigahertz. Very low frequency is 3 to 30 gigahertz. Extremely low frequency is below 3 gigahertz or whatever, or 1 hertz. My bad. The brain frequency relates to the state of activity. Lower brain frequencies pertain to sleep and dream state. The middle brain frequencies pertain to normal wake-up activity. The higher brain frequencies pertain to aroused or concerned states of anxiety. No brain waves means a person's brain dead, even though some body functions may continue. Naturally occurring phenomena such as lightning and thunderstorms, sunny days that soak a person with extra positive ions can affect the thinking of the brain. Chart going up the frequency scales. These frequencies are no hertz. I'm going to stop that for a minute so you can get that. You got theta brain waves, alpha brain waves, beta brain waves, and I'm going to go on to some more. Okay, here we go. Audio eyes. Background information. The concepts used in audio eyes have been discovered in the first half of the 20th century, but refinement of the technology to take advantage of what had been discovered waited until the second half of the century. This letter right here is from a transport pilot who wrote about this technology. The development of audio implants ran on two tracks. One public medical research, the other was the intelligence agents research. Audio eyes publicly placed in the people in the 1960s. They were experimenting on some victims of the stage, and the military in the Vietnam War used auditory eyes to devices to aid in communicating with their men who were sent into tunnels or were placed into forest situations where audible noise would compromise their locations to the enemy. The intelligence and military consortium was keeping the experimentation secret. It appears from looking at the worldwide research on the audio eyes that the research intelligence agents realized that the field was so ambiguous to open so many different approaches than that rather than straitjacket the research community by a specific strategy. They encouraged a wide variety of approaches in the research. Consequently, hold on, let me scroll down a little bit. Consequently, research by one group would overlap or duplicate research by another. Much to their credit, few researchers rejected offers to get involved because they saw the sinister ramifications. By the 1970s, the intelligence agencies were willing to start hundreds of people to experiment operationally with the eyes. People in every state were selected as victims. Many of these eye victims had programmed multiple personalities already. The controllers were heavy-handed people, and they used full force intelligence agents power to keep these people under their control at all times. These innocent victims have had their lives totally destroyed. Some tried to fight back, spending thousands of dollars to get out from underneath the insent audio messages and that the implants sent or the eyes sent, but the system was too big and too powerful to fight. Police, congressmen, psychologists, and many other people turned their backs on these victims. Some victims who initially fought back gave up resisting. Some committed suicide, and some continued to fight. Meanwhile, on the public track during the 1970s and 80s, medical researchers kept putting more and more audio eyes into deaf and hard to hear people. Hundreds of people in the U.S. and many hundreds stationed in UK, Germany, Australia, France, and other countries began to receive cochlear eyes. Australia was so proud of their audio eye research development, they issued a postage stamp showing an eye developed a bionic ear developed in Australia. The question begs asking, 1,000 people have publicly received audio eyes, isn't it obviously that the secret society and the secret intelligence agency have done at least, if not much, far more? Here's a brief chronological of audio eyes. 1790, first known attempt by Volta to electrically stimulate the ears. He shot approximately 50 volts of electricity into his auditory system and experienced the sensation of a blow to the head followed by a sound of a boiling, vicious liquid. 1850, electroatriatics was begun by ophthalmologists who hoped electricity could help ear disease in various ways. 1925, sounds were created in people by radio engineers by placing electrodes near the ear with a modulating alternating current. 1930, Weaver and Bray discovered principles used later in the cochlear microphonic eyes. 1937, by passing alternate current in the audible frequency range from electrode to the skin, Stephen, Jones, Lurie, Fortop found they could have people hear sounds. For a number of years, these men studied the phenomenon. 1957, DiGiorno and Eyes in France woke the world up concerning the ability to electrically stimulate auditory nerves and produce sound with the reports. A patient from France reportedly gets William F. House, MD, interested in developing an implant device. 1961, William House, oh gosh, hold on. I passed it up. 1961, William House eyes two patients with two short-term audio eyes. One patient receives multiple electrode eyes. 1960, intense research for audio eyes is conducted in California and places like Stanford University. The military also uses audio eyes operationally to be able to talk to soldiers in situations where external noise would compromise the location of the American soldiers, such as exploring tunnel systems. 1970, various research around the world began publicly implanting audio eyes into people. The intelligence agents began to secretly eye people, and this is known because many of the early victims can pinpoint a time in the 1970s when they got their audio eyes. In 1980, the FDA expanded federal regulations regarding cochlear audio eyes. 1984, by this year, 369 people received the House cochlear audio eyes which have been implanted are eyed by 36 different clinics. The 3M cochlear eye system, house designed for use in adults, which is already at hundreds of adults, receives FDA approval in November. 1990s, audio eyes, along with other eyes, begin to be used more aggressively by mind control programmers. Successful intelligence operations are carried out with the aid of audio eyes, and that's in the 90s. Here's how they function. Thousands have publicly received audio eyes, and thousands have received audio eyes without the permission by the New World Order. The eyes basically have to contain a receiver, a processor, a transmitter, electrodes, or electrical stimulating device. When sound arrive to the human ear, the sound causes biological reactions to the auditory pathway from the cochlea, the auditory nerve, the brainstem nuclei, and the primary cortical projection areas. Each of these areas are fair games for the machinations of the mind control researchers. There are brainstem potentials which originate in the auditory brain nuclei, primarily in the inferior cochlea. The public auditory implants produce a small electrical stimulus that bypasses damaged hair cells and directly stimulates the remaining auditory neural elements. This means for the secret eyes, the electrical impulse that's generated to stimulate the person to hear a sound or sentence is totally unnoticed by everyone but the victim. As mentioned before, psychologists are being used to shut victims up by declaring they're crazy for claiming to hear voices. How do these psychologists know that the person isn't hearing voices from an eye? And I know they don't need them no more, but a lot of people have them. Okay, some psychologists are declaring the eye victims are crazy, delusional, insane because the audio eyes supposedly don't exist. Therefore, it's useless to give any credence to the complaints of the victims. In other words, psychologists are being used by the establishment witch doctors to cover up mind control activities. And what's new? Establishment shrinks help cover up the program multiplicity for decades by labeling the program multiple slaves paranoid schizophrenics. During experiments, it was discovered the skin of a person can pick up auditory vibrations, so tests were run to see if eyes in other parts of the bodies could be used for auditory eyes. The vibrotactical system of skin has an upper limit of sensitivity to 400 to 500 hertz. In contrast, the auditory system has a frequency range between 20 to 20,000 hertz and an optimal range between 300 to 3,000 hertz. The auditory system had a dynamic range of 130 decibels, which the vibrotactical only had a 30 to 35 range. In other words, using the skin like on a chest to send auditory vibrations to the brain was a very limited way to create sound. For most purposes, it isn't a viable approach, even though some experimental auditory eyes were placed in places like the chest. The ones that were used on reconfirmed suspicion, the best results are by using the inner cochlea in the auditory canal area. Dr. Beck's and later, I'm sorry about this thing, this computer having a problem going up and down. Dr. Beck's and later others showed that nonlinear function will translate one frequency to another frequency, but although it does jump, this method is inadequate for the current mind control signals and linear function, which operates simply on the energy that the eyes have. Originally, single channel devices were used, but then multi-channel devices were soon found superior. The processing of units of device has to have an extraction method to determine the pitch of the signal that would present a square wave at the rate of the frequency. Soon the miniature computers that made up part of the audio implant were made so that they were programmable. Some of the publicly eye people, for instance, some who got a 4mm Kobler auditory eye who thought they were getting medical help were later followed up a decade later by the intelligence agents for their own agenda. Instead of just hearing the world, they got to hear mind control dribble from some handler communicating via the eye. As sound waves came into public eyes, their fast forward transmitted into many channels laying between, saying 100 to 4,000 hertz. Each channel may be assigned to a specific electrode located on the arrays of the electrodes. The electrodes are stimulated, for instance, at 300 pulses per minute. The transmissions go to receivers, stimulators, and then the subjects begin to hear something. Fourier transforms have also been identified and used by human brains to encode memory. In order to keep their signals to their implanted victim's secret, the network employs a tactic called piggybacking, where they piggyback their own audio transmission on standard FM frequencies Canal is the acronym for a system that is used simultaneously for transmission and reception via the use of double frequency key shifting, shift keying. Radio transmitters that send quick signals are various called burst, squirt, squash, or high-speed transmitter. Use of the eyes by themselves, with other eyes, and in conjunction with other mind control devices. Types of audio eyes: publicly admitted audio eyes, secretly audio eyes. Secretly audio eyes. Publicly admitted audio eyes. The entire world's gotten involved in audio eye research. The British Cochlear Eye Group has been setting up eye plant centers for UK. Not all publicly known eyes will be listed here. For instance, some of them I chose not to list, developed by. Anyway, these are different ones. These are different things. I'm gonna skip this thing, but you can pause it as I go. I'm just gonna scroll down slow. And you got the Shin audio eye developed in Guernsey, Czechoslovakian. The eyes were created in 1980s. 3M cochlear eye system house design model. You can just pause it and come down the screen with me. Phrase developed. These are different audio eyes. GOA publishing acoustical. She was asked to compare the pitch signals from Naturalist Laura, developed by Antwerp, Belgium. These were first eyed in 1986, had an internal canal antenna, microphone entirely in the audio system. Med-L, these are admitted ones, so let's go to the non-admitted ones. So we're going to go secretly eyed audio. All right, here we go. These were several profiles of people used in the world order section of secret victims to eye. The following criteria they used: vulnerable, such as single women, people who were already programmed with trauma-based mind control, psychics who had already told people they heard or seen things ordinary people didn't, people not highly regarded by society, such as minorities, criminals, street people, mentally insane who would not be able to find a support system to help them fight the experimentation. They also did the audio eyes into some of their own intelligence agents, apparently to some who were getting somewhat difficult to the superiors. Because this type of profile, some other things the author learned, it appears the 2 initial decades were used for more experimentation and development than they were for actual operations. And you got to understand, this was written in like 1990, 1999. This was released. So this is old, but a lot of old TIs watch my channel, and a lot of TIs now, new TIs, have probably got something in them, so you never know. So, however, with more than 2 decades of experience, they are now fully operational. From watching their interaction with victims of audio eye, it is clear they are not in the testing stage, but fully operation, have a full cadre of trained operatives, men and women, to staff the secret bases from which to monitor and broadcast signal to their slaves. The staff their bases with the 3 shifts and graveyard shifts leaves approximately 6 a.m. In other words, from what they can tell, they're using standard shift times from the audio eye control staffs. And there are cochlear eyes for auditory control secretly implanted without permission. Rubber molding skin covers the outer lining of the ear canal. There are tiny slits in this lining, which when pushed to the side would show the presence of coils in a plastic wire embedded in the area. Some burn marks occur on the side of the face due to intense heat generated by eyes, which is painful. Dental audio eyes. At least a dozen victims have complained their teeth were capped. They began hearing voices. Other sources indicate during the filing process, eyes are being put into people. This is a type of eye placed into Jay-Z Knight after left dormant many years until they decide to activate her as a new age guru. Ridge eyes. These implants can produce theta waves and even voices. They are designed to suppress a particular type of thinking. The body might be sent into paralysis or given various stimulus response stimuli in order to suppress certain thought patterns. If the slaves begin to have certain thought patterns that threaten the programming structures, these eyes kick in and divert the person's mental activity to something else. Body manipulating eyes. The subject of body manipulating eyes have been placed in Chapter 8. However, the desire was to keep all the information on eyes together. Mankind's placed objects into the human body for thousands of years in hope it would produce some type of change. So the history of this type of eye is voluminous. Reader's Digest had an article on how to give paraplegics the use of our arms and legs with eyes. Eyes are being placed in the human body to affect growth, change hormone levels such as stop estrogen, change DNA growth, carry out behavior modification. Several papers have recommended that sex offenders get eyes. The Rambo chips that have been put into many men have been linked to some crimes. In recent times, the following body manipulation eyes have been written about: crystalline corticosteroid eyes. These eyes affect the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal activity when there's stress or basal activity. It was placed in the prefrontal cortex to regulate the response to certain types of stress. That was the Journal of Neuroscience, September 1993. Norplant, a contraceptive implant into Hispanic black teenagers using the Mann-Hazel procedure. Polymeric brain eye. These eyes are ethylvenocopolymer matrix discs are used to release the brain dopamine for a period of a number of weeks. Testing has been done at Yale School of Medicine as well as other places. Proto 32 eye, designed by McDaniels, and the 32-bit microchip memory affects DNA growth within a person. Two doctors who developed the device are claimed to have died after they created the thing. The FDA has approved the use of this eye in the brain. It's believed there's a patent on the eye. Scholastic melatonin field eye, used to alter the speed of resynchronization rhythm in birds and implanted. Okay, and testosterone eye, used to release testosterone in the subject. And visual holographic eyes. And I'm going to stop there. That's the audio eyes. If you're interested in hearing more about this stuff, just tell me. This is a long video. That's why I'm stopping there. I will start. Today was the audio. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow will be the visual. So I hope you're enjoying this information. Well, not enjoying it, but enjoying knowing that you're not alone in this, that many people's been doing this. This is crazy. And if you're an OTI, I mean, I'm not telling you to freak out that you have, because I don't know, but I know they are used in people. They have been used in people for many years. So anyway, God bless y'all, and let me know if y'all want to hear more about these eyes. Thanks.